Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this is Stu's News, a review of American high-speed rail happenings over the last month. In this December 2024 episode, we'll take a look at what went down in November. Starting with Acela and the NEC, and the biggest news of the month, Amtrak put out a fact sheet for the new Acela train sets indicating those are scheduled to be in service by spring of next year, 2025. This means we'll probably get more information in the next few months. That fact sheet also contains the more definite language that the new train sets will enter revenue service in 2025, so sometime between March and the end of next year unless something goes terribly awry. Contractors for the East River Tunnel Rehab Project in New York City between Manhattan and Queens received a notice to proceed. That means heavy construction on the $1.6 billion project to repair storm damage on that tunnel is imminent. If things go to schedule, that will complete in 2027. In other news, Amtrak and NJ Transit shared some cool media for the process of bringing pre-made arch sections for the Portal North Bridge to the project on barges and then hoisting them into place. I especially appreciate the shot of the bridge going under another bridge. You don't see that every day. The Portal North Bridge project aims to replace an elderly movable bridge with a new fixed span over the Hackensack River in northern New Jersey, 5 miles west of New York City. That is part of the Gateway program, which will increase throughput, reliability, and speed between New Jersey and New York City on the NEC. Amtrak ranks the project as over 70% finished, with completion also in 2027. Speaking of Amtrak and NJ Transit, we've been discussing issues with catenary in New Jersey for a while now. The two entities put out an update of what they're doing to correct the situation. Inspection of Amtrak's 240 miles of right-of-way in New Jersey is complete, as are various necessary repairs associated with that. Same for NJ Transit and inspection of their infrastructure. The report points out that 2024 really wasn't outside of the status quo, but sounds like the status quo needs to improve. Catenary renewal on the NEC is now scheduled for a lot of different places in various projects. Let's talk grants. The Federal Railroad Administration's Federal-State Partnership for Intercity Passenger Rail Northeast Corridor grants dropped. Let's go over the awards. In New Jersey, you have Amtrak receiving $187 million for the design and pre-construction phase of the Sawtooth Bridges project. This is an ultimately $1.4 billion project to replace a convoluted 115-year-old convergence of the NEC and 2 other rail lines. That will include catenary work. With this grant, the project is now about 25% funded. Other New Jersey projects are more than 23 miles of additional new catenary, new signaling, and a new substation. That's about $300 million total for New Jersey. Along similar lines, Maryland will be getting $114 million for 100 miles of new catenary wire and signal upgrades. Pennsylvania got just over $400 million for electrical and interlocking work on the Keystone Corridor, some of which we talked about last month. Washington Union, New York Penn, and Baltimore Penn stations got a combined $250 million. Stations will be an increasing expense in years to come, as they currently make up 40% of the NEC's $106 billion backlog, with most of that taken up by New York Penn and Washington Union. Connecticut got $6.4 million for CAHSR bridgement replacement planning. That is in far western Connecticut near Greenwich. This is the only Connecticut bridge in the backlog that didn't get FSP money last year. Connecticut also got $284 million for various improvements on the New Haven-Springfield line, which connects Springfield, Massachusetts to the NEC in New Haven, Connecticut. That's it for FSP-NEC grants. FSP grants for the rest of the country are set to be announced in April 2025. but we'll see how a second Trump administration comes into play there. With that, we'll say bye-bye to the NEC and the new Acela train set. See ya in spring, hopefully, Lil Acela. But we'll stay in the neighborhood, quickly checking in with the Keystone Corridor. On November 18th, dignitaries gathered in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to celebrate the restoration of Keystone Service between Lancaster and Harrisburg. This completes the Harrisburg Line track renewal project, which we've been following since April. Service was able to reopen ahead of schedule just before the holidays. That's what we like to hear. Let's hop to the other coast and check what's happening with California High Speed Rail. With the election of Donald Trump to a second term in the Oval Office, several alarmist articles popped up about Trump's potential effect on California High Speed Rail. Given the conduct of the first Trump administration, I think it's safe to say Trump won't be doing the project any favors the next 4 years. Is it possible for the project to weather that storm? The short answer is yes. Stick around for the explanation. California High Speed Rail's projected 2025 budget is $2.6 billion. Let's assume continuation of that for 4 years in order to attempt to stay on track for opening a Merced to Bakersfield section before 2034. That is $10.4 billion of coming expenses out of the $18 to $20 billion to go before that section is done. The California High Speed Rail Authority currently has $3.7 billion cash on hand. In 2008, California voters approved a $9 billion bond for the project. As of September, $1.9 billion of that remained unissued. The project receives 1/4 of the state's cap and trade carbon tax revenue. Lately, that has been amounting to about $900 million a year. $3.6 billion from that program the next 4 years is a reasonable assumption. The project's various remaining federal grant awards amount to $4.25 billion. Those require a $1.3 billion match for a grant net of $3 billion. That all totals to roughly $12.2 billion. As a result, it would be reasonable for California High Speed Rail to emerge from a second Trump administration with just under $2 billion. 2029 would then be a key year because without a major cash injection from somewhere, the project starts running on fumes, about $5 to $7 billion short of being able to complete Merced to Bakersfield. All of that is contingent on a Trump administration not being able to claw back an outstanding FSP national grant of $3.1 billion. If that's not the case, fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy decade. And regardless, you're still looking at an additional $100 billion to get LA to San Francisco running, but that discussion appears to be for a new generation at this point, as it cannot possibly be completed remotely close to the originally envisioned time frame. Hopefully that clarifies the situation a little, but it's a good time to check out the Central Valley reports. Some of these numbers are from August and some from September because the California High Speed Rail Authority is lame. Capital outlay budget summary: nothing stellar at $132 million expended in September. You can see by comparing expended to date with percentage of year completed that they're already 40% behind. Design build expenditures $98 million in August, that's mediocre. Average daily site workers still over 1,500. That does appear to finally be bearing fruit as results managed to accelerate above the schedule on both guideway and structures. Keep in mind this schedule is about 8 years behind right now. Various other schedules are holding right now, so that's a positive. CP1 earned value chart, schedule performance index slipping from 0.96 to 0.95. Their overall trend line stays above the late line, so while it could be better, it's not a bad situation. Risk contingency is conspicuously absent from this report. The explanation in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting is that they're updating the form. Okay, we can find those numbers in other reports. Contingency funds for CPs 1 through 4 was drawn down by $29.8 billion in August and $24.8 million in September, given the previously reported pot of $660 million. That should mean $605 million remaining. But looking at supplemental September information put out recently, contingency balance is indicated as $1.6 billion. So did the California High Speed Rail Authority just quietly go over budget again by $1 billion on the initial 119-mile Central Valley segment? That's enough of California High Speed Rail. Let's move on to Brightline. In the West, another quiet news month. Pre-construction activities continue. California mostly potholing to try to precisely locate existing utilities. They're doing pre-construction at the future maintenance of way facility at the Victor Valley site. There's a nice piece by Channel 8 CBS Las Vegas about the pre-construction work being done at the Sloan, Nevada site. This and the Victor Valley work is the first I've seen of this type being done out of the right-of-way, so another sign, in my opinion, that they're getting close to heavy construction. Switching gears to Brightline in Florida, the Stewart saga continues. Martin County Commissioners voted to make a deal with Brightline for a station at the same site the city rejected. The county owns the land, so the county assumes a $15 million maximum liability. This station is estimated to cost $45 million. They're going to try to pay for the rest with grants because, frankly, Brightline's cash flow situation isn't the best. Also in the deal, the county secured a commitment from Brightline for at least 8 daily stops at Stewart compared to the previous commitment of 2. Along the same lines, a $42 million grant application for a replacement of the St. Lucie Bridge, which is a low-level water crossing a mile from the proposed Stewart station, was passed over. Last year, the city of Stewart received a grant for about half of the $220 million project cost. Florida East Coast Railway, the owner of the right-of-way, went for more this year and didn't get it. So now someone has to figure out where the money will come from without the help of the federal government. Last month, we talked about the arrival of 5 new Siemens Venture carriages in Florida and its impact on ridership. October ridership was up 7% over September, but Florida was impacted heavily by hurricanes both months. Milton in October caused Brightline to cease operations for 2 days, so we might have to wait a couple more months to get unaffected data. That's all for Brightline. Let's mosey on down to Texas. With the Texas legislative season approaching, a swarm of bills have been pre-filed. Included in those are not 1 but 2 bills to build high-speed rail from Austin to the Mexican border and ultimately Monterrey. Before you get too excited, HSR is defined in those bills as 110 miles per hour or faster. But there are also a couple of bills opposing high-speed rail. One would deny eminent domain to private companies seeking to operate high-speed rail. The other would keep private high-speed rail companies from receiving money from the state of Texas. Gee, could that be aimed at Texas Central? Just a wild guess. However, the second of those bills paints with such a broad brush that it would probably kill Austin to Monterrey as well. We'll have to see how it goes. Dallas officials recently went to Japan to check out the sitch there and ride some trains. This is because Texas Central would use Japanese high-speed rail technology, and it's assumed Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation will as well, since they would almost surely hook up with the planned Dallas Texas Central station. On the flip side, there were complaints that the trips amounted to vacations on the public dime. What can you say? It's a tug of war down there. They've been fighting over high-speed rail down there for 30 years now. That's it for Texas, and now it's time for Stu's Boo-Boos, where I go over everything I missed or got wrong last month. Pull up a chair, this might take a while. Last month, we talked about a new Amtrak maintenance facility in Philadelphia at 30th Street Station. That's a true and accurate story. Unfortunately, while I was talking about it, I displayed a story about a rail yard in Seattle. Kudos to commenter probably maybe someone for catching that first. During the discussion about NEC Amtrak numbers, I labeled the various slides I created as September fiscal year 2024. As always noted, those reports run 2 months behind and the numbers were actually for August. Credit goes to commenter Soviet Clarinet with the eagle eye. As noted already, the St. Lucie Bridge grant story was a miss. That was published 2 days before the video. Close, but this isn't horseshoes. Big thanks to commenter Gregory596 for catching that one and consistently contributing the Florida knowledge. Lastly, and most unfortunately, in the election section, I featured an article about Nixon as part of the evidence for what past Republicans had done on the subject of high-speed rail. The problem? The article was about Missouri Governor Nixon and not President Richard Nixon. A huge and unforgivable oversight on my part. Though the foray into politics was to blame for my obvious rush to wrap up video production, I am committing an extra day to better catch these mistakes. One now and then is understandable, 4 in 1 video is a fail. While we're on the subject of Richard Nixon, he was president when Amtrak was created. There are many opinions about this, so I won't get into it, but that is Richard Nixon's superficial contribution to the topic. All that said, the gold star total is now up to 18 for your efforts. Silver stars for a boo-boo-free month, 5. A few months ago, I was getting cocky. Now I have Everest to climb. Let that be a lesson to you, kids. As always, if you find a boo-boo in this presentation or something I missed, point it out in the comments. If it's a good one, you win a prize. Big thanks to the Lucid Group Discord channel for their continuing contributions. If you'd like to join our motley crew, check out the invite in the description. A reminder, super thanks are available and those funds will be going toward upgrading render power through the end of the year. The button for that is below the video. Plenty more videos to come. Up next, I'm heading out to Vegas to grab media for a new Brightline West video, and I'm going to cover the California High Desert Corridor while I'm at it. Expect those videos in the coming weeks. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.